Welcome to the look back at the 2016 Wineglass Marathon. I'm your host, Frank Acom. My guests today are Chris Sharkey, chairwoman of the Wineglass Marathon Board, and race director Sheila Sutton. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us and doing this again.
Well, it was another successful year. Did everything go as planned?
Yes, it was a wonderful weekend, and especially Sunday with the full and half marathon, everything went beautifully.
Yeah, there are a lot of logistics that have to come together in a really short period of time, and we get so much help from so many partners on the race route, and it was fantastic.
Let's take a look at the marathon course.
Yeah, over the 35 years of the Wineglass Marathon, the course has changed a number of times, and this is the route that we've had since 2009.
Starting on Mountain Washington Road in Bath, of course, ending at Centerway Square on Market Street. Oh, what a beautiful view.
Wonderful view. They have a nice, long, straight shot up to the corner before they have to turn.
This is one of the most exciting shots for us because you see just the sea of people coming down Mount Washington.
We have a very unique start for both the full and the half marathon. They're out in the country, next to cornfields. It's unique.
Now, you mentioned this is the 35th annual Wineglass Marathon. How did it all begin?
There's a few doctors that got together that decided to start a marathon. It was an interesting way of doing it. They started at Taylor Winery, and each year they would switch the direction where the start and the finish changed. But back then you could do that with 200 runners.
We had 291 finishers that first year, which was 1982, and I can tell you the runners like it a lot better not having to start the race with that long road up from long hill up from Hammondsport. So this is actually the seventh most Boston qualifiers come out of the Wineglass Marathon because the course now is flat. It's actually a slightly downhill elevation, and it's considered a very fast course. So you can see how quickly these, over 2,000 runners spread out, even from that mass start.
I'm amazed at that every year when you see some of the front runners who really lead right from the beginning. They go right out of the gate very fast.
Right there was just a pacer. They're pacers carrying the signs, and they're going to help the runners achieve their Boston qualifier times or their PR. The full marathon was sponsored by Kennedy Valve this year, and there's Holly Hughes, who is pushing her son Jonah, and for the first time in the marathon with a Hoyt chair. She ran an incredible time of 3:10 pushing that chair. She is in her own rights a very fast runner. A couple years ago she was third overall for the females, and went in it because Jonah wanted to do a marathon and had no concept that she was going to be able to push him that fast.
She actually finished 11th overall for the women, even with the Hoyt chair. So
incredible race.
And I know that you have a lot of interaction with the runners throughout the weekend. I'm sure you hear some pretty inspirational, amazing stories.
Yeah, there's a runner right there in that pack that had 10% lung capacity and finished the full marathon. He was in a wheelchair at one point and not able to move, and was determined he was going to continue and not let his pulmonary issues hold him back, and this was his 6th marathon. A lot of inspirational stories.
we actually this year had 2 visually impaired runners who ran with guides, and it's why a lot of people also volunteer, because everybody's got a story, whether it's to overcome something or to reach a personal goal. It really is inspiring. And I have to say, I volunteer myself at a lot of different events. There is no nicer group and more grateful group of people that we serve than these runners. They really do appreciate the support they get out there. We had this year 2,000 volunteers out on the course. We had 815 volunteers just at water stations. And the runners are so appreciative of what we do in this community.
The runners put in months and months of training. Our job is to make them succeed on race day. And there's a great team that's our goal, is to make it as easy and as successful for them as possible. The two visually impaired runners ran the full marathon too. That was the race that they were in, and they had a great time. It was a good day for them too.
I had an interesting conversation last year at the Radisson Pasta Dinner with a runner who had come from Cleveland and was with a group called Moms Who Run. And she was so blown away by the Wineglass. She came back this year with 100 of her friends.
Wow.
To do this. And they said next year they're going to bring their families because their kids were very upset that they were doing the chocolate making experience on Market Street and they weren't there to enjoy it. So we try and make them successful on race day, but we also try and make it just a fantastic weekend experience for them.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we're focused in here on the video on Sunday, but a lot of people may not realize this is a weekend-long event.
Well, even longer than a weekend. We had a running club come from Aruba that came in. It was 15 of them. They had their own Facebook page set up, and they actually were quite hysterical. They came in on Wednesday and stayed till Tuesday. And that's pretty typical of some of the distances that runners are traveling. They'll come into town and stay longer, experience the wineries, the chocolate making, as Chris mentioned, on Market Street. We worked with the CVB, the Visitors Bureau, and they set up a number of experiences for the runners to take part in. An event at Heron Hill on Friday, beer tastings, a lot of different things. CMOG had make your own wine glass, just a lot to see and do in the area.
You know, you mentioned earlier that, you know, the leaders went out early. These first ones that you see coming through, you know, just reaching the village of Bath, so very early on in the race. And, you know, they were all within top 10 finishers. So, you know, those are runners who really know themselves and know, you know, what they need to do to be able to make it through the whole race and still do well.
This is a great spot for watching the runners. It's down near Pulteney Park, where runners can also pick up the buses. One of our biggest logistical challenges is the busing. All runners have to get bused to the start, and that's what happens with a point-to-point course, just like Boston. New York City's the same way. Getting enough buses to get all the runners to the start lines.
Yeah, we actually moved from Corning. We moved the equivalent of half the population of Corning on buses from Tioga Avenue to both of the start lines in less than 2 hours. So it really is quite a sight to see. If you've never seen it, come join us at 5:30 in the morning on race day, and you too can see that happening in the dark. But you know, our bus companies are some of our heroes as well, because if the buses don't show, you know, or don't get to the right place at the right time, we're in trouble. So,
and you can see the 305 pace group. That group will spot on, get them through water stations and to the finish. They stick with them. They'll get there.
And I know I mentioned this last year, but I'm curious again, how much water do you think you go through?
Well, about 100,000 plus cups.
Wow.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is not have enough cups.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually, or water. So we have more of a challenge keeping up with the cups. We actually ordered 115,000 this year, but you have to do a very complex calculation of how many each of the 20-something water stations needs, and you calculate it based on how many runners go past that station at what point in the race. It's actually quite a mathematical challenge, and you never get it perfectly because the weather changes.
You mentioned the weather. How did the weather affect it this year?
It was a little warm. It was a little warm, particularly at the start, and in the end, it was a lovely day. The runners had no complaints. It was looking rainy, and rain held off. It was a great day, weather-wise.
Earlier, we spoke with runner Jeff Lehman from New York City about why he runs marathons.
I got into it probably for a different reason than most. I had a broken disc in my back, and I had doctors in New York telling me I needed surgery. And I was in a position professionally where at a time I just couldn't do it. And I vowed that I would run a marathon and prove them wrong, because running was something I could do alone, whereas basketball or tennis or other sports you couldn't do. And I started running really as sort of a goal. And it's something I always wanted to do. I always watched marathons and said, I'm going to do that one day, I'm going to do it one day. And of course, I never did it. I said, time to put up or shut up. And so I ran for that reason, and did it about a year and a half after I was diagnosed as needing surgery by two doctors. I ran my first marathon. And I meant to do one and be done, but I had a child who said, I didn't see that one, I want to see the next one. And so I ran again, and you get kind of like a bug, and you enjoy it. And like I said, when you finish the marathon, you forget all the pain. It's all worth it, and you just want to do it again.
We'll return in just a moment with a look back at the 2016 Wineglass Marathon on WYDC TV Big Fox and WJKP TV.